On this episode of the Sports Opinions podcast, I have the executive producer at The Athletic for NBA Audio and also the producer of the Back to Back podcast and co founder of Count the Dings, Jade Hoye, with me as we have a fun, long podcast. We talk about, his career, a big retrospective basically on what he's done in his career. We talk a whole lot about his career, his 11 years at ESPN, what he's doing now at Count the Dings, The Athletic, and kind of just delve into what the sports media is now, and how it's affecting everything. We really just have a fun conversation. It's a little all over the place. We get a little philosophical. We talk some stuff that's not even in the sports realm, but it's a really, really cool show. I really recommend listening to the full thing because Jade's a really cool dude, has a lot of good insight, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. So without any further ado, enjoy the show. What's up, sports fans, and welcome to the Sports Opinions podcast. I am your host, as always, Alex Cuesta, and with me today is the executive producer at The Athletic and the Back to Back podcast, and he's the co-founder of the Count the Dings network, Jade Hoye. What's going on, Jade?
I'm doing well, Alex. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, just quickly, you have been doing sports media and sports stuff, you told me, for a pretty long time. You're a producer. You've been a producer for how long? Almost 20 years, more than that, doing that in the game, basically.
Yeah, getting paid to be a producer since 1999. I graduated in 97, but a producer since probably 12 years old. I want to say that's when I first started recording music with my brother. And I've really never stopped creating stuff since that age.
That's lots of fun. It's always nice when you get to do something when you're young. You have a passion when you're young and you get to follow it, and now it's your career. And speaking about your career, you worked at one of the biggest players in the game, ESPN, for 11 years. Kind of tell everybody what you did at ESPN as a producer, what you were involved with. I kind of just want to pick your brain about your career. So what was your time at ESPN like?
Well, it really starts in New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, I worked at Showtime Networks. I was an interactive television producer, which meant building out the earliest forms of VOD. So like a lot of the stuff like Netflix that you're using now, I was doing Blue Sky stuff on because it wasn't available yet.
Okay.
So my job involved kind of concepting stuff and for, going around the company trying to say, this is what this is going to do, and it was really cool, but really kind of boring for me. But it taught me how to use a 3-chip digital camera at the time and how to edit. And so I used to take the camera home and record my friends doing stuff and then editing it and making fun little videos. In fact, it led to me getting a side gig with Showtime, doing interstitial video for their channel Showtime Next. And so I kind of was really interested in doing that, and I left my other job. And so I was dabbling around Viacom, MTV networks, doing promos and stuff like that. But New York just wasn't really for me. So in 2006, I came back to Connecticut, which is where I'm from. And the only place to work here with my skill set is there, So, but it was different. It was very different because in New York, I was doing very progressive styled video, that was not really in line with ESPN. In fact, I got there and I remember like one of my first days, I walked into a closet and it just had a green screen and it's literally just guy with mic, talking. And then your post-production process was like put a topic bar at the bottom. And I was like, it felt so strange. I was like, wow, I really didn't get it. That's like that way your brain thinks.
Yeah.
Like, even though, like, because it was so radically different, and I was happy to have the job, so I didn't really think about it. But it didn't last long. Like, it wasn't until like 2 years out of that. Actually, in fact, I was brought into ESPN specifically for one thing, which was the Sports Center Minute, and it was
Okay.
their first foray into trying to digitalize Sports Center, which, by the way, they're still trying to do. They're still trying to do this. They've never really accomplished it.
Oh, Jesus.
And then, yeah, and so I kind of just started doing my thing. Like, I never was one to, I got assignments for sure,
Hmm.
but I was always trying to get ahead of that process by figuring out what it is I can do with somebody else in the company that's going to benefit them, before you give me an assignment, you know. But it was, I mean, there's so many aspects of it, that 11 years. There's some great moments, some really tough moments. I worked overnight for many years doing the Daily Dime TV.
Okay.
So ESPN had a very popular section on the NBA page called the Daily Dime and 10 Drops of Knowledge. It was highly popular, and so they pretty much assigned me the video product for it. I was a video producer
Hmm.
at ESPN, and it did very well, extremely well. And I did that for 3.5 years, and it came to an end in February 2011 because somehow ESPN had not negotiated the rights to have a digital NBA program beyond 1 year.
Oh my God.
And so I walked into work one day, and I had created something on my own. It was quite popular. I used to get letters from people in Australia, and getting home at 6 a.m, working on it with just me and
Wow.
like talent.
Wow.
It was just a 2-man. It was a purely digital operation.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Hmm.
And so I remember I came in one day, and my boss was just like, "It's over," you know. It was over,
Wow.
and I was like, "Shit." I
So
was kind of crushed.
with ESPN, so you're saying, are they still kind of slow to getting on that digital front? Because there are a lot of companies, kind of Bleacher Report kind of popped up through basically being an app that was, instant news, and now Bleacher Report is what it is. Your current employer, The Athletic, all digital. Is ESPN still kind of, you mentioned that they're still struggling to get Sports Center on the digital front. Are they kind of struggling in general in getting out of the stone age of really basing everything around cable and that type of news, like TV cycle, and getting into the digital world?
I would say so. Yeah. I don't, I mean, there's some things I like there, but for the most part, and unfortunately, they backtracked. They were making some strides. I mean, my my tenure ended with, we were doing stuff that was highly progressive in
Hmm.
2017, an assortment of stuff, and things just got turned around. And on the TV side as well. I don't really, to be honest, I don't follow much of their digital stuff.
Okay.
Their social stuff that's digital is like, I don't know. Um, but it's kind of, we had, for my space there, I can only really talk to that.
Hmm.
We had done a lot of great stuff. In fact, at the end, the product that I was in charge of was mainly the NBA audio and, video, right? And we had a number of projects that were doing extremely well. We had developed an audience, like a real audience. I mean, I would get letters from people across the world,
That's
and
fantastic.
we were doing live shows with people are lined up around the street,
Hmm.
young kids from all different backgrounds, and it was shut down effectively. It was shut down. Uh, you know, I had a close relationship with Henry Abbott, who was
Yeah.
TrueHoop.com. He was kind of my champion there. We didn't necessarily, he wasn't my boss, but for all intents and purposes, he was. And we were just doing so many different things with all the different talented people there. And it was real inaction happening at no cost. And I was just, it was scrapped.
It
And
seems crazy because in the social media age, it seems like you were doing exactly what the social media age would ask for, communicating around the world, kind of connecting with young people and things like that, like you mentioned. And that's
Mhm.
kind of what the social media age demands. And the fact that you
Well,
were doing it, and it seems a little short-sighted on their side to not continue doing something like that.
you can't really say them.
Yeah.
It's,
Well, yeah.
there's specific people, right?
Hmm.
It's when you work at a big corporation, you really hope to be in touch with the people that, can make it happen for you.
Hmm.
And I was, for the most part, until the end. They had made some changes in 2015-16. They changed the site up, you know, to match the social media experience, right? The endless scroll, for instance.
Yep.
um, I I still don't think that. I mean, it
I
just
stopped
doesn't
visiting the
work for me.
website probably around that time because
Yeah,
it's you're not, and they took away it seems like they took away a lot of features that I enjoyed. There were certain parts where you could just go to writers blogs that
right.
beat writers blogs, and that was completely, they were just barely hanging on at that point, and that was completely hacked.
Yep.
And
It
it
was
was
choice.
it
It
was
was
choice.
choice.
And yeah, they were giving you, it was definitely more of the social media feel where they were giving you content based off of the teams that I favorited, giving
Hmm.
content they thought I wanted and not letting me go and find the content.
The algorithm. I call it the great algorithm god. I mean,
Yeah.
far more supreme than the
Yeah.
algorithm at ESPN. But that gets to my point of about the Daily Dime TV
Mhm.
being successful. I knew that show was successful because it was before they had built in algorithms to kind of push content at you, And so
Yep.
later down the line, I remember because I was in the video department, we would always celebrate the person who got 200,000 views on their video, but it was on page one. It's like, duh, it's going to get two,
Yeah,
anything on
that's right
page
away.
one was
Yeah.
going to just get seen.
Yep.
And when they made that change, everything else stopped being seen, right?
Hmm.
It was all towards getting one huge big number
Yep.
instead of just dispersing it out across the board. The NBA page in 2012 was supreme. You had so many different things going on there, so many different viewpoints. It was just, and it all changed. And then what happened as a result? The video product demands changed, right? So I would be able to do. I mean, the reason I got into digital content was because it was free.
Yep.
I didn't want to be in TV because I didn't want to have to adhere to time. I didn't want to be on time. You know what I mean? If I needed a little bit more time to
Yep.
work on something, I would take it. It didn't. That's what digital's all about. And ever since then, digital's become more and more co-opted into what is like TV, right? The
Yep.
internet's
Completely and
become
totally.
that way.
Yeah.
The internet has become that way. And like my bosses had asked me to stop doing certain things, stop, making long videos, stop using talking heads. And I'm like, what is going on here?
Now I'm curious with your time at ESPN, because one thing I noticed and one thing that completely turned me off from ESPN is initially I used to go there because I have had the curse of liking some pretty bad sports teams. And they weren't very good, but I could go to ESPN to see the highlights of my teams. And if I didn't catch that game, I'd be able to maybe get some key stats of certain players. And even on the website, it was a focus. Each and every team kind of had their own bubble where you could be a fan and find out what your team did, where everything about ESPN shifted to who were the best teams at that point. What team was LeBron on? How good were the Warriors? Now it's the Lakers. And then even in football, like they picked and cherry picked certain teams. And if you
Yeah.
weren't a fan of that team, it was kind of like you weren't getting much. Go figure it out somewhere else.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
that something that was a shift that you saw on the digital side where you were maybe going to cover that awesome player on the Hornets that had a great game and is on a good run, and they were like, no
Yeah.
one kind of wants to hear about the Hornets, so let's do this instead. Were you kind of seeing that at all?
100%. That's more, it's more to what I was saying just before.
Yeah.
The viewpoint just became more and more provincial. And it was all about, the algorithms were kind of just seeing, allegedly, we're
Yeah.
seeing, this is the thing. And you have to be very, I'm highly skeptical of things that are happening out there.
Yeah.
Do we really know, or are we just seeing things,
Hmm.
that are, making this seem relevant? I see
Get
it on
into some
Twitter all the
psychedelic
time.
stuff. I love it.
I don't believe a lot of things that I see. You shouldn't believe everything
No,
you see
be skeptical of
on
everything.
TV. Everything,
Yes.
because things behind the scenes. I mean, I know this firsthand are being
Hmm.
pushed. People are buying likes. People are buying followers. It's all the same thing. And like I had a tangible thing going on. Real people, young people from diverse cultures. I know that to be true. People were writing to me.
Yeah.
So basically, social media kind of poisoned the landscape. you
That's not
know
surprising.
yeah, and so what were we all chasing? I mean, I knew people at ESPN in high level positions that were buying followers
That's
because they
wild.
felt it made them. Yeah, it was like, and it's it's just sad. It's just sad.
So we're gonna, we'll jump out from ESPN because I feel like that's depressing at this point. Let's jump into some of your current endeavors. You are a co-founder of Count the Dings, as I talked about, executive producer of The Athletic, with NBA Audio there in the Back to Back podcast. Kind of tell everyone about Count the Dings first. What is Count the Dings Network? What's the goal of it? What can people get out of it? Talk a little bit about it.
Yeah. So in 2017, in July,
Hmm.
after there were two significant layoff periods, the second one came in April 17. I pretty much lost some really key people. The podcast I was working on called True Hoop was shut down. Effectively, everything I was working on got shut down because that was all I was working on in some
Hmm.
fashion or another. And so, incredible day for a couple different reasons. I was devastated because everything I'd spent, 7 years building, or 6 years after the collapse in 11
Yep.
with my other show, which was fine. I mean, I'm glad because of the night shift. I got out of the night shift. That
That's
was
always
the
a
one
perk.
thing. And it just got me onto a new challenge, right?
Yeah.
But there, here is 6 years later, building all this up, and then boom again. And so I got new bosses, and they put me in a position that was just, they were asking me to leave. Essentially, they were like trying to change my hours, trying to change my role, put me on
Kind of
college
nicely, kind
football.
of asking you to resign in like
I was
the
like,
most, yeah.
or I mean, it was like, here's a 10-year demotion. I still make the same money,
Yeah.
but going back to doing what effectively was PA work.
Yeah, no.
And I was just like, no, and fortunately what happened was, because of the shutdown of the podcast, the story kind of blew up. It hit some outlets, and I got a lot of feedback, letters from fans across the world, as I said, and
Yep.
it got the attention of Maverick Carter over at the Uninterrupted. And
Hmm.
so he had offered me, his company Uninterrupted offered me a position at in LA, but unfortunately I just didn't want to leave my family. And so I had another opportunity with some partners in LA, which I took and worked on for 6 months. But unfortunately, one of the partners was not reliable or shady. And
Putting it
so
nicely. Yeah.
in so in 2000, this would have been 2018 February, roughly 6 months after I left ESPN. Very difficult. That was hard too, by the way.
I can imagine over
Those
a decade at the company, you think you're investing your life in there. That's not easy to leave
Oh
somewhere where you pour
no,
your
but
heart and
the
soul into it.
but the crashing of the first partnership, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
But I knew the way I was thinking was, I just need a bridge. I need a bridge that gets me out of ESPN and onto something else.
Hmm.
And like I always trusted my skill set. I still do to this day. And that's the most important thing. If you're a producer, you
But you
need to
got to
have
bet on
skills.
yourself. Hell yeah.
You want skills though. You
Yeah.
need to, at the end of the day, you're like, well, I can make a wedding video if I need to,
I
whatever it is. I know I could do something. I'm not, because you meet a lot of producers that don't do anything, you're
Yeah.
like, what do? You're just telling me what to do. It's all, you know, it's like, you're not a producer, you're just a middleman, you know?
Yeah.
At ESPN, one of my bosses, I loved him as a person, but I mean, honest to God, his whole job was just to come over and ask me what I was doing. So, you know what I mean? I was like, what is the point of this? But so I had the runway to get out, and I did, but it fizzled. And so I had a large, group of very dedicated fans that I was like, and me and my friends, this is me and Zach Harper and Big Waz, who all helped to build this, Amin Al Hassan. I was like, I could probably put some type of conglomerate together of us, and we can kind of continue on with the support of the fans. So we start the Patreon, and it enabled us to exist for, well, it still does now. And I was like, well, let's just get this going. We'll see how it goes. Maybe something like The Athletic would happen.
Yep.
And I didn't know I didn't specifically know it was The Athletic. I was just trying to find some type of partnership out there, talk to a number of different people. And then The Athletic, Dan Kaufman contacted me, and I'm very grateful because I love working there. And it reunited me with one of my favorite collaborators, Ethan Strauss. So that was super, super key for me.
That's good. It's always nice when you kind of take the leap of faith, you work your tail off, and things come out the way you want them to come out.
Yeah.
So you have your network, you're at The Athletic. You're the executive producer of Back to Back podcast. Tell me a little bit about the Back to Back podcast. What goes on that podcast? Some of the details about that. So if anyone's interested in listening to that podcast.
Back to Backs, yeah, that's kind of our flagship pod that came from Count the Dings.
Mm-hmm.
That, along with the Daily Ding, where we moved over to The Athletic.
Yep.
And that's kind of the the ship that leaves the mothership from back when. That's the closest thing of contact to my prior years at ESPN that involves the great Zach Harper and Big Waz. And on that particular show now we do two shows, the Basketball Buds on Tuesday, and then Nerder She Wrote with Dave Dufour, Modak Heel, and Seth Partnow on Thursday. Which is, so the idea with that podcast is you're hanging out with your friends on Tuesday, just kind of shooting the shit, and then on Thursday it's a little bit more analytics, more serious. So it's like, to me, the two sides of
fandom ball. Kind of, yeah.
I don't like to be either or, right? Our world is so divided, it's always left, right. It's like, you can be both. You can have both discussions.
No, not anymore. It's either black or white. There's no gray area, period. Like
I mean, I'm doing that. Some of the other podcasts I'm working on right now are like Hoops Adjacent with David Aldrich and Big Waz, and that's another concept that involves like a dichotomy. Waz being a young guy, David being, the elder, and having a cross-generational conversation, which you'd never see.
Yeah, that's a rare and a generational conversation that can be intelligent and civil, because sometimes you have those cross-generationals, but one of the two just doesn't know what they're talking about, and it really becomes a one-sided debate. If you have two guys that are intelligent about it and can be amicable with each other, like, that's a great show.
It's just, but there's like something in place, some mechanism in our world, our social media, that always is keeping us apart, black, white, old, young, with the okay boomer shit, like
the Karens and all that stuff. Yeah, the dumb stuff.
It's like, to me, I'm just like, I'm so fed up with it, like, because it's not real to me. That's not how reality is. Because I proved it, because Waz and David both like adore this show, and it's like working like totally the way I wanted it to, and it's spawning some amazing conversations that are both. Waz is like thinking about things that he might have presumed, and David too, as opposed to locking people into spaces and they're it becomes, get off my lawn, you're just a get off my lawn person, all that stuff. It's all nonsense. People just need to talk and stop like being, that's essentially all they need to do. They need.
You're telling me these shows where they just pay people, the high-end sports guys, to yell at each other, they're not real? Come on.
Right. It's they're entertaining, but
it's such
you
a
have
show.
to if you don't know that it's a show, if you don't know that it's like, uh, to be like that, it can be problematic. You can actually
Yeah.
think like that's actually real life. I remember at ESPN, the gym was the best place because you would see Skip Bayless as a normal person. You know what I mean? And he was a very nice guy.
And the fact that
You
he
know,
has like a 23 pack and nobody knows that he's like the most in shape guy on the planet. Him and
by
Matthew
the way,
McConaughey should have like a workout off, and I don't know who would win. Like,
and he works out in slow motion. By the way, he's just
does
like
he
he'll do
really?
these. It's everything's slow motion. Colin Coward used to be at the gym, absolutely fantastic person.
Yep.
And then hearing the conversations, obviously, we're fantastic there.
Oh, I can imagine their
Sometimes,
actual debates are probably significantly better than what you see on TV because they don't have to put on their show. They can actually, Skip Bayless and Colin Coward are two very intelligent sports guys. They didn't get where they are without being intelligent sports guys.
yeah.
So, I mean, I can imagine being a fly on the wall for some of those conversations would be absolutely fantastic.
That was the best part. Like, I got to actually work with, the car wash guest was great. I did a series with Jay Harris and Mike Hill called Both
Okay.
Sides of the Ball.
Yeah.
A little digital short we used to do. And we would get access to the car wash guests from Emeril Lagasse to Rob Riggle,
That's so
to
cool.
Snoop Dogg,
Yeah.
and we created a nice little series that was just still to this day very, very good. In fact, Mike and Jay are sharing it on their IG feeds right now.
Nice.
And that was a challenge too, because we'd only have 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes sometimes to create like something that was like a very good product. If you looked at it, you'd be like, how did you do that in 20 minutes? But it's all because that's the way digital producers have to be able to think. TV, when you watch it, is so damn like complicated in a way that just is like, it's not that complicated. You're like, why is this taking this long? All you're doing is sitting at a desk.
I could only imagine. Some of the things that go on. Like, I don't know enough of the production side to kind of feel your frustration, but I could
Yeah.
imagine that, if you are on your side and you're seeing certain things go on, and it's like, that just doesn't make sense. Don't do
Yeah.
it that way anymore, and it'll be better. Like,
I mean, it's TV's just so antiquated, and like they're still doing things. You're like, really? This is what you're doing? Like, it's been done 1,000 times over. I remember one funny story I had because we, as a digital producer, we were called predators, and at any moment's notice, you can get a call at your desk to go shoot. Like, we need you down at North Campus to go do this thing with Ditka and so.
yep.
Next day, this would be the next morning.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm setting up, and I really took what I thought was the appropriate time, roughly 30 minutes to set up 2 cameras, shoot some lights. And I remember I was setting up and Dick goes, hey buddy, this ain't Ben-Hur.
I can only imagine. He seems like a friendly guy too. Like, he doesn't seem like
he was very nice about it. It was a great
but that's
joke.
fantastic. This isn't
Yeah.
Ben-Hur.
And then one my favorite all-time fly in the wall kind of meeting was with Gary Player
Okay. Wow.
at the Starbucks at ESPN. So
Yeah.
I was waiting in line and he was too. And I don't know if it's because we're the same height, roughly 5'7". And I don't even know how this conversation started. He was such a nice guy. And I think what happened was he turned around, he was in front of me. He said something. He was being jocular with the attendant.
Mhm.
And then I'm just the type of person that likes to talk to people too.
Yeah. Obviously I am as well.
Yeah. And like, we just got to talking about my grandparents for some reason, we
That's
literally,
random.
yes, but it meant so much to me. And
Yeah.
because it was a real conversation. It was
Mhm.
like, we talked for like 10, 15 minutes about health, being being thin as you get old. That was, he was saying, because he's a super thin dude.
Yeah.
And he's like, in his 80s. And I mean, he comes off as very young,
Mhm.
and my grandmother, my grandfather passed away last year, but my grandma's 99. It's going to be 100
Wow.
this year, and has that sharp mind.
Mhm.
And he was saying, got to stay thin. gotta stay thin as you get old, you know.
I
So
mean, that's something that you will take with you where like you're going to hit like 55, 60, 65 and be like, I got to lose some weight.
oh yeah,
Gary Player told me to stay thin. I got to get on this.
it's true. It's totally true. You
So
know.
it's funny that you mentioned seeing him at the ESPN Starbucks, because growing up, I always saw the This Is Sports Center commercials where they would
Yep.
have and obviously it's not that way where they're in their uniforms walking around, but I can imagine ESPN is a place where you could
It's
literally
totally
see
like that.
anybody at any time
One hundred
walking
percent.
around, kind of,
Yep.
talking to, the late Stuart Scott, just walking down the hallway with him and Albert Pujols having a conversation because Albert was going to be on the Sports Center set that day. Like, I could imagine just if you're a sports fan, like that's definitely a place that you will walk around in awe of. Did you kind of get
Of
numb at
course.
some point to the superstars walking
No.
around, or was it always cool?
I mean, I would be working with Jalen, right?
Yeah.
You would be like, there were the analysts,
Mm-hmm.
Tim Legler's, and I mean, I'm trying to think who was the big analyst that was um, like I never got to be like with like a Peyton, that level of analyst. Those guys were always not in Bristol for
Yeah.
the most part. But there's the regular guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, one day I got to see Kobe walk in,
That's so
and I was
cool.
like, yo. And it's literally
That's
like you're
Kobe.
just walking in to get lunch and
Mm-hmm.
Kobe's walking by, you're like, oh my God, and then I'm trying to think, it might have been, who
Yeah, you
was
don't
it?
miss a 6'6" basketball player walking by
Yeah,
you.
that's what I was saying. The basketball players were just like, unmistakable. You're like, but yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, every day, never get. I never did.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the most exciting part about. I didn't also lose my mind. I was just like, yo,
Able to keep your wits about you. That's one thing I've seen some celebrities. I went to Marist College over here in my freshman year. I remember I went home for whatever vacation it was. It was one of the vacations. And I'm driving back through Jersey. We're at the final rest stop there. And I'm sitting there, and that was the year not too long after Jim Fossil got done coaching the Giants. And I'm sitting at the rest stop. Me and my dad are getting food, and I turn over and I look, I go, Dad, that's Jim Fossil. And
yeah,
my dad looks and goes, it is. He goes, you want to
yeah,
go say hi? I'm like, nah, I'm going to leave him alone. Like, I don't, if they're doing everyday things, I don't want to bother athletes and celebrities because it's like, man, leave them alone. Let them be people. Like, if they're
yeah,
there to meet and greet people, okay, fine. I'll go say hi. For
yeah,
the most part, just
yeah.
let them
I agree
be.
with that. Yeah, because the sighting is good enough, right?
That was
Like
an
what?
awesome, I'll never forget seeing Jim
Yeah.
Fossil at that rest stop ever.
Yeah, my dad did when I was growing up in here in Hartford, we would go to a lot of the Whalers games, and
Oh,
my dad would take me up to meet Gordie Howe, who would be sitting in the stands.
God,
But Gordie
that's
Howe was the
awesome.
ambassador of the Whalers,
Yeah.
and that was kind of his role. Or like Guy Lafleur would be outside smoking cigarettes in the area you get food,
Yep.
and so I had a lot of those encounters when I went up to the Montreal Forum. I told you I was going to tell you this.
I feel like hockey
One of
guys are
my
different, though. Completely and
one of
totally,
my
hockey guys are just so much more open to being friendly with other human beings. Like,
uh, well, they've definitely fall into the crowd better,
yeah.
and so I got to go up to the Forum in '87. My father's childhood friend was one of the lawyers for the team, so he brought me into the locker room
Wow.
after one of the games. I got to meet Matt Naslin, who was one of my heroes. Brian Scrudlin was the one who really took me and like showed me around the locker room. When I was actually a little bit younger, I made a commercial with the Hartford Whalers here with Dean, the great 1986-7 team, one of the greatest teams, underrated teams of all time,
Yeah.
with Kevin Dineen, Ron Francis, Ulf Samuelson, Dave Babbage, Mike Lee was the goalie.
Wow.
They had
Throwing
so
out some
much
names.
talent on that team,
Wow.
and they took the Canadians in '86 to 7 games. And being a Canadians fan, I would have lost all hope in life if they had lost that game. But Claude Lemieux scored in overtime, and they went on to win the Stanley Cup that
Yep.
year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those encounters were so much fun. And I went a long time, in New York, not meeting. I met artists more, in the humanities,
Yep.
writers and musicians and stuff like that, which was super cool. Worked at MTV, which was more or less the same thing. You know,
Yeah.
I'd be walking by the TRL studios. My brother was on the, ninth floor there or something. And you walk through the TRL studios, you'd be seeing,
Yeah,
whoever.
there's Jay-Z, there's
There's
Diddy,
Lars Ulrich, you
there's
know?
Korn walking through, like, because
Yeah.
rock was big back then. Like,
So, and then the more and more you get to do it, one of my favorites of all time was doing shooting at Summer League with Kevin Arnovitz, with doing a feature with Giannis Antetokounmpo.
that's awesome.
And we did this great segment um, where we took him to the buffet at one of the hotels, and we wanted to see how far away from the buffet he can get and still grab the mashed potatoes, because his length, it was like 6 feet. It was insane how far he could do it. But the nicest guy of all time, just a pleasure to be around. Super young. As you get older, like me, it's interesting to be around athletes that are that young, but they're that professional.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no way I was this professional at 19, 18. No
I feel
way.
like the athletes now are more groomed, especially basketball players, because as they go through AAU and as they go through being superstars, they're not, they're very used to being interviewed already by that point. Because if you're a
Mhm,
big AAU star, people are
mhm.
talking to you already. So it's like,
Yeah.
and they're getting coached by their coaches how to, act young men and be professionals, and for the most part. So I
Oh
feel
yeah.
like they're
No, and
more
there's a lot of,
groomed now than they've ever been.
yeah, once you head into the draft, you're getting coached.
Hmm.
There's programs that the
Yeah,
NBA implements. But
absolutely.
Giannis is a different situation. He's just he comes from a different path than
Hmm.
most of the guys that are coming into the NBA. In fact, I think having not gone to AAU is quite good. You
Thank
know,
God. Yeah, that system needs
he's
to go down.
and so I had so many interviews with Henry, with so many of the draft kids, and so you get these moments, 10, 15 minutes, where you got to really see into, like, just a window into their personality. You'd see
Hmm.
interesting things, I'll never forget D'Angelo Russell, who just kind of just sat there on his phone the whole time, it's like, whereas other guys were,
Engaging.
very engaging. Yeah, like
Yeah.
CJ McCollum, we shot down at Veselka in the Lower East Side.
Yep.
Um, I mean, I did so many of those players, either live or through Skype video on True Hoop TV. So thinking back, it is kind of a career. I'm actually kind of at the point where I'm like old, you know.
Do you feel it? Yeah. Do you feel old as you talk to some of the kids, or kind of get certain ideas that are out of the box that you maybe wouldn't have thought of? Are you still, like, feeling young and trying to do things more fresh and always trying to be on the cutting edge?
Yeah, I mean I personally, my thing is I just want to make stuff. Always have been like that from when I was like 12. Like, my favorite thing is just making something and then listening to it or watching it, or like cooking it, anything,
Hmm.
experiencing the work that you did. Every time I would leave ESPN, I would be listening or watching to what I did. Most podcasts, I mean, I'm doing a lot these days,
Yeah.
but I worked on Ethan's book trailer for a significant amount of time. I don't know if you got to see that,
No, I
but
didn't get a chance to. No.
I spent the most I've ever spent on making something. I worked on Ethan's book, The Victory Machine,
Yep.
about the Warriors dynasty, and
Hmm.
I produced a trailer for him just because I wanted to hone my video skills. I'm doing a lot of audio, so I
Hmm.
wanted to kind of make sure that my video stuff was still there,
Hmm.
and I just spent so much time on it, and it came out wonderfully. It's one of the best. It might be the best thing I've ever done, and I was very, very proud of that. But I just love to make stuff. I just do. I mean, it's just what at times it becomes a conflict with my family. It's that kind of a thing.
Oh,
Like,
I know that. My wife gets
it's
mad at me sometimes with
therapeutic.
the podcast.
Yeah, it's just therapeutic,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, you have something.
Yep.
That's what I was saying. Like, you want a skill. Like, I always valued people that knew how to build a house, right? Or knew how to fix a car. You know, we
Yep.
undervalue these people.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who has skills these days, everything's about management, you know.
Yeah.
But
Oh, I grew
when
up
the shit hits the fan, you're gonna want someone who knows how to fix a car.
blue collar completely. My dad's a truck driver that used to get a car, and when it would break down, he would be like, all right, time to take it apart, figure out what was wrong, and put that piece back and get it running again. I don't want to buy a new car. So
Yeah,
I was around those types of guys. My dad was definitely that type of guy. So,
yeah,
and I'm a union insulator. I'm a construction worker. So,
yeah.
I'm a more skilled guy than I am, at doing podcasts apparently. So
That's dope. That's dope. That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, this is my hobby. I tell my wife all the time when she gets frustrated, I'm like, I'm not a heavy drinker. I don't do drugs. This is it. The podcast is it. So,
Good. Good for you.
which one would you rather have?
Right, right.
So, I love hearing all your stories and the things, bringing it back to the past and stuff like that. You've seen changes in the industry. Has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? Where has it gotten better or worse in your eyes? What has digitalization done to kind of improve it and kind of hinder it?
I mean, I don't. It's tough to say because the landscape has changed so much. Just the economics of it, right?
Yeah.
With so much the newsrooms get, especially now. You know, I mean, shit. SB Nation that's done some great stuff's been shut down. You know, I mean, some of the stuff at the Ringers, very very good.
Yeah.
I don't even know what they're doing now under the circumstances. It's really, it's not necessarily that it's gotten worse. The world's got worse, you know, and so it's stressful. But here's the thing. Ultimately, what happened with a lot of media, it got so dumbed down. It got so dumbed down, and what's popular is, like, as a video editor, you're like, really? This is what people are consuming? You know what I mean? This
Yeah.
clip, it's that, like, nobody appreciates quality anymore. You know, I don't want to say that absolutely. There's
I
people
mean,
that
yeah.
do,
Yeah.
but like you spend time making something that is syncopated, it paces, it has good music, and then some dude just fucking films his friend farting. You know what I mean? And so, and that's, I learned that lesson, that you never ever want to keep track of counts or likes as what constitutes your, what is the art to you. I
Yeah.
always made art for me. And, like, I always thought to myself, well, if I like it, I bet you someone else will, you know? And but that's a struggle, and has been for a lot of different artists. In fact, it's led to the shutting down of some great outlets, like some great comedy places got shut down because, and then, Facebook fucked people over, you know
Yeah.
again, the social media world, they've just destroyed so many different things, from newsrooms to artists, to music, etc. And so that's a big problem with the world. I feel like a lot of the soul of art is being lost now, right? Nothing
So
has soul,
does
nothing has
kind of
purpose.
everyone having an opinion and everyone being able to kind of share their opinions very openly now, is that kind of hurting the strength of content where
Yes,
people are just trying to
yes.
create something that makes a major
Everyone,
opinion, a quick
yeah,
opinion instead of a deep
yeah.
opinion?
No, I mean, when in 1998, I taught myself how to do HTML and Flash. You
Yep.
had to earn your way onto the internet,
Oh my God.
You you
You
had,
know,
even in the
yeah,
blog space,
yeah.
you still had to earn it,
And when your web host went down, it was like, shit, I just lost everything. Now I have to go find a new host. And what if my stuff
Yeah,
can't go to this host? Oh no. Like,
yeah, because you just needed to do something. You needed to make an effort.
yeah.
There's so little effort now. You can have 15 burners, and still be causing trouble, making a mess of things,
Hmm.
trolling somebody, and so it's like, it's just incredible, and on top of this stuff, like what they do with these digital contracts with kids, I mean, it's a mess. It's a mess. I prefer the old internet, 1998, 1999, I mean, when I first got onto the web was at Wesleyan.
Hmm.
I used to have to go to the science lab, you know, and like dial up, and it took, you know, it was an effort. It's too easy now. It's too accessible. And
So, delving into that, because like you said, like everyone can kind of do everything. Like I'm here, I'm doing this podcast. I'm a union construction worker. I'm kind of a nobody. I did not kick and scratch my way to earn my stripes into getting into the world of sports media. But here I am 2.5 years later. I've talked to some really, really awesome people that have worked their asses off to get into the sports media world. Um, so like maybe I'm part of the problem, but what
no, no, no. I
like
don't
but
find
no,
no the podcast
I'm
space.
just kidding.
But let me tell you something about that. That's very interesting.
Hmm.
Going back to my ESPN days when I was getting, my managers were like redacting content, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I was struck by one thing. Like I was working time and time again on video products for this or that. Generally not my stuff, but for
Yeah.
other things that were, I was like, is it engaging people? I know it's got 50,000 views, but is anyone ever going to remember this? Who knows? It
Yeah.
has to be short. All of a sudden in 2016, 1 minute long, right? And I achieved that, by the way, rather well. And,
So
and but
hard.
but what was interesting to me at that time was everything has to be short, right? And then the podcast, this long 45-hour long, sometimes 90-minute thing, was the thing that was electrifying
Or
people.
Joe Rogan,
That
where
was
it's
the
like a
thing.
whole half of day.
That was the thing, though. It made no sense to me. I'm like,
Yeah.
this thing that has no video is now, the thing that really has caused people to reach out to me on a level. It's like, your product means the world to me,
Yeah.
and I was like, that's what I need to pursue.
It's
I'm
so
not going to sit
funny.
here and
Yeah,
do
it's
this. So
it's funny
podcasting to
where
me is an effort.
TV kind of, I feel like people fell out of love with TV and kind of went back to enjoying radio shows. And that's exactly what the podcasts are. That's basically turning on your selection of a radio show and listening to it. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's interesting just to shift back to that and just how, you know, in podcast, it's back to what you said. It's giving people choice again because I
Yeah.
can choose to listen to a specific basketball show, or I can listen to a variety sports show, or I can listen whatever the hell I'm interested in. I can find a podcast and I could scroll through thousands of them until I find one that I enjoy. So it's
Yeah.
definitely back to that choice that you were talking about that I think was lost that people have found again through podcasts.
It reminded me. I've been listening to the radio. I think I got my first radio when I was like 7, and I used to listen to Tom Snyder, Larry King, and then I caught on to WFAN. I listened to years to Joe Beningo and the Overnight.
I just had
Mark
on Al Dukes
Summers.
the other day.
Mark Summers. I mean, overnight. Oh, because I go to sleep to the radio. I go
Yep.
to sleep to podcasts, and it's I've always listened to radio. I love it because you have to use your imagination.
Absolutely.
You're only listening, and so I've been thinking about that a lot lately because of the fact. In fact, I've started making far more phone calls because I'm kind of sick of the video thing that people are doing. It's like, like I've been doing the video thing for a long time. Like now I'm sick of it because everyone's doing it. I'm going back to just pure calling people.
And it's funny because
It's
now that annoys people. If someone calls you, it's like, God damn it, just text me or FaceTime me. Like nobody wants to get a phone call anymore. It's
well, that's
crazy.
been the case for a long time.
Yeah.
Like I have friends that are afraid to get phone calls.
I don't get that. I
Yeah,
don't get
I
it.
know. I don't either. Like
It-
I've always been one to like, if I get on the phone with you, I mean, the only one who can out talk me is Dave Dufour, if you know Dave. But Dave,
no.
Dave could like out talk me, but my dad and I can go for hours.
Oh, me
Like
and
I
my
could
dad.
talk
Yeah,
to my dad for
my mom yells at my dad to get off the phone when me and my dad get going because we have so many similar
yeah.
interests, but then we argue half the time too. So
Oh yeah.
we just debate. Me and my dad have been debating forever. He always
Uh,
my dad's the type of guy that you can agree with him, but he'll figure out a way to argue with the agree. It's like, no, we're agreeing, Dad. Stop.
Oh,
Like,
see, me and my dad just we're into the same thing. We're both very interested in the same subjects, and so
mhm,
it's kind of just a learning process. I'll find something out, he adds to it. We go
that's
back and
cool.
forth. We hardly ever argue.
Well, it's not real
My
arguments. It's
brother,
just fun debates.
no. My
Yeah.
brother is the one who is he'll be the one that kind of doesn't agree with us. And but yeah, I like talking. I love listening. I like being around my friends, and that's kind of like the gist of it. It's very simple, you know. And basically, my thing going back to, you know, I was very fond of the Bam Margera movement with that coincided with Jackass. I was a big fan of Bam Margera stuff
Hmm.
that he did prior to that. That was a big, the CKY was a big inspiration to me,
CKY is fantastic.
and mostly because of the collaboration. I loved being a collaborator.
Hmm.
I loved being in a band, you know, working with 4 other people on something that we're all gonna dig.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing ever since. I've never been a solo act, you
Hmm.
know. I rely greatly on the people that I work with to do stuff with. And as a producer, all you really want from somebody is to meet you halfway, you
Yep.
know. Once they do, you can bring it home. That's your
Hmm.
job as a producer in some fashion or another, you know, in different mediums. Don't stick your, you know, don't put yourself into one space, you know, audio, video. It's all the same thing, you know.
Yep.
You should be able to do everything,
Hmm.
um, including the social media stuff, which is quite fun too. But collaboration to me is super key.
So overall, last thing I want to really touch on you is where do you see sports media, your side of production? Where do you see it going from here? Because you're a part of the Athletic, which I think is one of the more progressive sports media outlets right now in the way that they handle things, the way that they do things. Where do you see it going from here? Is there any way to actually predict where the hell it's going from here?
It's day by day,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, who knows? Under this new world is crazy, honestly. And it's, I mean, if you were just gonna say, you know, what's interesting about my situation in this situation is that there's been no hiccup for me. I've
Hmm.
been isolated here at my desk at ESPN. I was virtual. I was working with, you know, Brian Windhurst in Omaha, and Tim Bontemps would be in, you know, Boston or wherever he was at the
I
time.
think he was in Brooklyn. He was a Nets. I think he was a Nets
At
guy
the
for a while because I used to follow Tim
right,
Bontemps pretty closely,
right,
being a
right, right.
Nets fan. Yep.
Oh no, he was with the Washington Post. So, but I guess he was living in Jersey. But anyway,
He's been a little
you
bit of
know,
everywhere.
I'm saying, like,
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
bringing all these different pieces together into a
Hmm.
virtual space.
Yep.
And so it's funny because I was doing video that I'm seeing now people do, including now on broadcast ESPN in 2011 when I started doing Skype video with the True Hoop Gang.
Hmm.
So it's interesting for me. I was built for this moment, you
Yep.
know. I didn't think it would come to fruition under these circumstances, but so it, but I'm just afraid that, like, there is going to be overemphasis on this Zoom talks, you know, and
I
hanging
hated
out.
that with the draft. I couldn't stand was that whole entire NFL thing that they did where they just had all the talking heads on at one point, and it was a jumbled mess with
Yeah.
that Zoom talk. That and I agree with you. I don't want there to be, I enjoy doing this too. If they want to use Zoom in a fashion where two guys are talking, or with the Instagram live, what a lot of people are doing, I don't
Hmm.
mind that because it's traditional while being progressive, I guess, in a way.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
like that, but I do not like the big Zoom talks where there's like 1,000 people on at one time. I don't enjoy that one bit.
I enjoy, like, all different settings, you
Hmm.
know, from two people, three, four, five, all the way up to 10, 11, 12. I've done those.
Hmm.
Friday Mailbag, one of my favorite shows, is a large cast of characters. And so it's all in how it's kind of framed,
Yeah.
you know. What you're saying, I totally agree with. It's just too much. They've been doing that on CNN though, right? During the elections, you see like 13 analysts around the desk. I'm like, really? So the future, though, I think is all dependent on the technologies.
Yep.
So, and I don't want the world to be like this. I don't at all. I want people to be interacting, you know, dapping. I don't like this world. It's not natural to
I
me.
think we're going to get back to that. I think everyone is scared to hell right now because we have the issue is this is such a mystery disease. This is the first time that I think most people being alive where there isn't an answer from somewhere about this, a quick one. We're so used to everything. We're being able to WebMD it or Wikipedia it. You Wikipedia COVID-19 and it's question marks. We're not used to that. So people are just scared to hell right now. I'm confident that we will go back to no masks, handshakes. It will be back, I think. I don't think, my personal opinion, there isn't going to be a new normal. I think everyone's just scared to hell right now. That's just my personal opinion.
But generally, when they scare us to hell, it changes society like they did in 9/11.
Yeah.
Obama, the other day, I was listening to him and he says, every time we've gone through something, he says slavery, the Great Depression, 9/11, we've come out stronger. I'm like, did we really come out stronger after 9/11? Because I lived prior to 9/11.
Certain things, no. Like,
but I lived prior to it, and I love that. I'll take that world any day. I will take September 10th any day, 2001 over 2000. Because things changed that day, and they were not for the better. For the last 20 years, we've been in perpetual fear of our neighbor coming to our house, maybe killing us. You could be a terrorist. You could be a terrorist, right? That's the world you want to live in. That's the world it is. And now we've doubled down with this thing, another unseen mystery thing that's like, changing every day, whatever it does, it's flying, catching it 23 feet away. Today, I heard that it turns out that it's not transferable on materials like cardboard.
Apparently I saw that too. It's not that it's not transferable, that it's not highly likely to be transferable.
Right? It's all this language
it's
stuff.
Such a mystery of to where things are going. And and I agree with you that it's just. And to me, this is also this saturates into sports as well, and it's all together. The 24-hour news cycle is one of the worst things to happen to humanity, and the best at being the same exact time. We get information quickly, so we're all more informed, but it all depends on what you want to be informed with. You can pick and choose how you would like to be informed. So
it's the great paradox too right now, because I was just telling this to Jade Hoye today. I was saying to him, people have lost the art of the Google. Like, people don't Google anymore. Like, you can find out information, like stuff that is even considered like dangerous, It's like there's a lot of censorship going on YouTube, which I cannot tolerate. That was
Facebook
not the way it
Twitter
was.
It wasn't
It wasn't like the internet
wasn't
like that like when I first started getting on. It was about freedom. I trust people to be smart enough to know what the truth is, right?
My early internet searches were Dragon Ball Z websites.
but like the same outlet, like the New York Times, like the other day they had they pinned a couple promoted tweets telling you that don't believe this conspiracy, don't believe that conspiracy.
Don't tell me
it's
what
the
to believe.
Same outlet that was selling us weapons of mass destruction. They lied to us about that. Like, what is, what I'm saying? Like, trust me, I know, don't worry about me. And people on Facebook, I have all these friends on Facebook that if I put up something of sensitive material, they need to shit on it. They need to debunk it.
Fact
checking thing. I'm like, I've had to tell people, I'm like, we've become a bunch of snitches on each other. That's all we're doing on Facebook now. We just, if I don't agree with it, I'm going to snitch, let me be. Let me be. Let me talk to people that would want to talk. Just because I put up something I want to share doesn't mean I'm fully on board with it. It's
but
just
that's the way it has to be now. And and it's again, it fits into everything else. Everything has to be one way or the other. You can't like LeBron and like Michael at the same time, apparently. You can't think that they're both fantastic players, and if God forbid you say they're 1 and 1A and they're almost equal. No way, you can't do that. So
it's really
ridiculous.
It's really, I mean, I've seen Facebook tear families apart now. Like I have my wife's cousins. My wife's cousins aren't even talking to each other because of Facebook. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here?
This is like MySpace. If you didn't make the top 10 friends list, I don't know. That next day at high school was a big deal.
Alex, if you knew me super well, you'd know that I met my wife on MySpace.
That's fantastic.
Yes, I made it. I made it.
You did. You put her in the top 10, and that was all you needed to do.
So funny. But yeah, like
Oh,
the
man.
future is going to be dependent on the technologies. I said this about the NBA experience with like this no fan stuff, right? Well, let's see it when, because I know they've been working on the virtual reality thing behind the scenes. I
Yep.
know people are complaining about League Pass forever now, and my reasoning, I think, is because they put all their money into the virtual reality experience. They don't care about League Pass. It's a thing of the past.
Hmm.
And so now with this no fan thing, are we just going to be all matrixed out? You know?
And I don't understand the no fan thing. The arenas are massive. You're telling me you can't let in 10% capacity and just tell them the social distance in the stands, and and the players will still have fans. People will still be safe. Like, come on, you're telling me that we have to go empty arenas? That's bull. That's 100% bull. If you're telling me that 6 feet's the number, then
Yeah.
give people specific numbers, specific groupings. All right, if you have a group of 3, you're in this section, and be smart about it. You could still have fans there. Fans can still be there.
But to me, the more interesting thing is no reporters.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Because, you're seeing that like in Connecticut here with the, Ned Lamont, Cuomo's little brother,
Mm.
doing these press conferences that are virtual, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same. Like, so you're gonna get less than appropriate coverage on that level. Ethan Strauss, who's uh, who I consider to be the best NBA reporter out there, thrives as being someone who's there,
Because there's
right?
something to being said about being a reporter and being on your toes. And maybe that question wasn't written down, but now you heard something, and now I can ask a follow up or, there's
Well,
something to
but
be said
beyond
about
that,
that too.
it's about like the more intimate moments,
Yeah.
not the presser,
Mm-hmm.
not the fake pressers you see.
Yep.
The pressers are fake, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
behind that where you get the small talk with this player,
Yep.
the small talk with that player. Now that could be eliminated. That's
Yeah.
terrible,
Yeah. Well, you could
you
sit
know?
there and just tell them on the record, let's talk. And you do, like you said, you do get that small talk moment that gets great quotes that really makes the news. Yeah. Those are some of the things I hope really does come back, because the no reporters, again, not to get too much into this, we're told masks work, and then we're told masks don't work, but we're all still wearing masks. So if masks
That's what my
work, bring the
dad was saying.
reporters in and throw the
That's what my
masks
dad
on,
was
and
saying.
that's okay. Like,
One day
if
it's
the
this, one day it's that,
yeah, like if the
doing
masks work,
this.
then why can't reporters be
Yeah.
there? Like, the cameramen are going to be there; they're not going to stop them. What's the difference?
Well, it's just I hope they just don't normalize this to the point where we forget that we used to have reporters at games. You know what I'm saying?
That would be terrible. Well, that's I guess that's the podcast job to keep on jamming that down, because there's no one really monitoring what we say. We can be as cutthroat as we want to be on our
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah. No, the podcast served that as a great space for that. And then,
Yeah,
you will have players being able to hopefully still communicate directly with players, and players are going to have gripes, and they're going to use the media to get those gripes out there.
absolutely.
And I'm certain that they're not all going to find this process. I mean, you're seeing it now. It's very interesting because I don't know if did you see the Tillman Furtado Trump thing yesterday?
No,
Exchange at the
no, no,
White
no,
House. They had
no.
the Rockets owner there and to talk about, he's a restaurant owner. He owns Bubba Gumps and those kind of restaurants across the country.
Hmm.
And they got on to talking about the Rockets, and it was just very interesting to hear Tillman talk. He throws Daryl Morey under the bus again, but and it was interesting that he kind of called out, the players, they get half the revenue in this league, and which is not like other leagues. It was strange. It was very, very strange, and the players could
Yeah,
be very nervous right now. Let's say they even come back. Are they going to finish? If they don't finish, the league could literally cancel the CBA.
yeah.
That's still a
There's
possibility. And that puts them in a position to then now renegotiate under circumstances we don't even know are going to, they could really force the players' hands,
This is where we'll see what Silver is really, who he is really, because he's been a very much a player's commissioner. But we all forget commissioners work for the owners. He's come off as a very much guy that he's very friendly with the players, and it seems like they have a decent relationship, but they work for the owners. So if something
Yeah.
like that does occur, is Silver going to do his job as a
Yeah.
employee of the owners and do what you said? Or is he
Right.
going to be the guy that he's kind of portrayed in the media and really try and be a middleman and work with the owners and the players? It's going to be interesting if that ever comes to it.
But also like, and you saw this recently. Um, there's a top echelon now, right? There's a 1%, so to speak, in the NBA.
Yep, they all did that
There's
that call
a
where Chris Paul
small
got them
group,
together. Yep.
right? And so that's all going to be very. This is interesting times, as
Well,
they say.
LeBron is King Arthur, and then you have like KD is Lancelot, and like they're like the Knights of the Round Table, like met right there.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be very interesting. But I don't even know. Honestly, I don't know what I think. I personally get depressed because I watched something like a music concert the other day with real fans. I'm like, how is a world possible that's not like, you know,
Yeah,
it's not natural.
humans can't
It's
do.
not
We
natural.
can't survive this way. We are interactive beings. We are
Yeah.
very much communicative beings in a sense that we have to interact with other people in a large setting. We enjoy parties. We enjoy those types of things.
This is the
We
thing. Like
thrive on those types of things.
and honest to God, in Connecticut here, I'm seeing it. So there's that. Also, Connecticut, you should know that the preschools are still open too, which is
Okay.
like, okay, that's strange. But at a certain point, when it's destroying your art, right? Your artists are being shut down, your musicians are being shut down, your athletes are shut down
Your
right
small
now.
businesses are now
At a
shutting down.
at a certain point, you got to go. Wait a minute, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Like, what are we trying? Like, I'm not trying to be that guy that's like, you're blood on your hands, but look at the sacrifice now. Like, there's
At
no
every
art.
level, at every
There's
level, it is affecting us. And it's going to come to a point where, I'm with you. I'm not a blood on your hands type of guy. And I don't always agree with some of the protests, but there comes a point where you have to look at it and go, when it affects your family, that's the thing. If
yes.
it doesn't affect you, it's easy to say, no, don't be an idiot. Don't do that. But if it's you that's a business owner that is now on its last savings, and
Mhm.
either I open back up or I have to sell my house and my family has nowhere to go, then what? You know what I mean? So it's
Mhm.
coming to a point where it's hitting everyone everywhere and it's hitting everybody differently.
Mhm.
It's a crappy situation overall in every
It
single
certainly
way.
is. It certainly is. Yeah. But um, yeah, I can go way down the rabbit hole on that one because Connecticut's an interesting story. If you don't know, over 60% of the deaths have occurred in elderly nursing homes. You know what I mean?
I'm
You
in New
have
York. I know all about that.
preschools that are open. You have you have Targets, Walmarts, grocery stores, liquor stores open. Like you know what I mean? It's selective in which in the stuff that they're shutting down.
And the
And
fact that New
it's like,
York, California, and Texas are all ago with sports by the end of May, beginning of June, if those three states plus Florida, the four biggest states in the
yeah,
country, the four most populous in a way, like if they can get going, there's no excuse for any other state in the union to not get going.
right. Yeah. I just think you'd be, silly to not think or question stuff. You shouldn't really just, okay, CDC, okay, WHO, run our country, please. Like, do we have elected officials anymore?
Nope.
Where are they? Do I
Nope, they're
even know
gone.
they're here?
They are gone.
Like, I see them on
Uh,
the video. That's what cracks me up about the video, dude. Do I even know you're actually in Connecticut? You could be anywhere, you
nope.
know?
Could
You
be a
know,
bunker.
it's you have to just be like, always be like that. I always say question everything. Don't don't get it like, I'm smart enough. I went to Wesley, and I actually have a lot of faith in people in general. People tend to say, the public's dumb. Yes, they are, but like a lot of them aren't. Like a lot of people care. Your neighbors care. Everyone wants clean water. Everyone wants good schools for their kids. You have common
Definitely.
sense issues that people from the right and the left are going to agree on. That's the stuff you need to kind of find. You may not like the person, but like, you have common interests at the end of the day, like those things. I get it, but try to like operate in common with a common sense. You know what I'm saying? Like outlook.
Jade, I completely agree. And we could
Yeah.
talk about this forever, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to close this out. before we
Yeah,
go
good.
too much further away from sports.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's these times kind of call for that, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it is, it's a way. I
It's
do
all
another show
related.
on the Sports Opinions Podcast Network with my brother, Cuesta Dos, and we're expanding. We're doing a more variety as well with sports because me and my brother are more than just sports fans.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely interesting. But yeah, that's gonna close out this episode though. Jade Hoye, executive producer at The Athletic and Back to Back Podcast, founder of Count the Dings Network. If you just listen to the podcast, all around awesome dude. Jade, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome, man. Thank you.
Again, I'm Alex Cuesta, host of the Sports Opinions Podcast. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at _Cuesta30. Find Sports Opinions on Twitter at Sports Opinion 30, Instagram Sports Opinion 30. Find this podcast anywhere you can find a podcast. Like, subscribe it, rate it. Jade, social media wise, where can people find you if you want to give out any plugs?
At Jade_Hoye, HOYE, or at Count the Dings, or at Back to the Number Back Pod.
Awesome. Awesome. So again, this was the Sports Opinions Podcast. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Have a good one.